So, Martyrs Day. What is Martyrs Day? Why do we talk about Martyrs Day? And why are we talking about 40 years of celebrating Martyrs Day? What is Martyrs Day? Why are they martyrs? Martyrs of what? Because when I was growing up in the Catholic Church, there was a church called Martyrs of Uganda. Martyrs of Uganda. I think it's in Nima. It was one of the parishes. He said, when we went for, Catholic Church, every now and then they put us together in the diocese and we have games and all of that. I was a man's boy, so I was very involved in that. And then I was in St. Catherine, and then they mentioned Martyrs of Uganda. I never really understood it. Okay, moving forward. What is Martyrs Day? So this event occurred in June 1982. I can't remember how old I was. I probably was in class 2 or something like that. And I grew up in Birmingham, so it was really massive for those of us living in Birmingham. And the story was, I don't remember what day it was. Today I'm learning it was a Thursday. Thursday was the day of the broadcast. But I think the event occurred on Wednesday. So Thursday, late afternoon. Curfew starts at 6, by the way, in those days, 6 to 6. I'm sure some are asking what curfew is. Curfew is, you can't go out. It's like the COVID lockdown, yeah. I think that has helped us to explain curfew. COVID lockdown, it's just like that. So you can call it a lockdown. For the Facebook generation, I think the word curfew, you will know how to spell it. I think it's C-U-R or something like that. Okay. But call it lockdown, that's fine. Let's say lockdown. So lockdown starts at 6 a.m. is open, and it locks at 6 p.m. You have to be back home. You are not back home, the soldiers will beat you up on the street. That's how it was. You are not back home, they'll beat you up. And like lockdown, there were exemptions. Doctors, I think only doctors. So doctors, soldiers, policemen, I think only that. Essential services, I don't remember that expression being used. Just doctors and policemen and that kind of thing. So that was curfew. Now, for those of us who lived in Burma camp, the telephone in the house, when it rang, we were told from age 5, 6 how to respond to the phone. So if my father is responding to the phone, he will pick the phone and mention his name. Sometimes he will mention his unit, and then he continues with the conversation. He picks the phone, it's P.A. blah, blah. He mentions his rank, if he's captain, his major, his lieutenant colonel, and then he mentions his name. When I'm picking the phone, I have been told what to do. So if I pick the phone, I still remember the phone number. I pick the phone when it rings in those days in Birmingham. I will say, hello, this is 3304, number 27 Burma Villas. That's how you pick the phone. If you don't do that, they'll cane you. This is Birmingham, we're not joking. If I don't do that, they cane me. So the phone rings, I rush. I'm told when you pick the phone, you say this. So I pick the phone. Hello, this is 3304, number 27 Burma Villas. And the response was always the same. I mean, it's a very familiar response that is not for public consumption. But the response comes always, hey, kweku na wanu atisa no. I got that all the time. So I pick the phone. Hello, 3304, number 27 Burma Villas. Hey, kweku na papa we na wanu atisa. I remember all that. So on this day, I don't know what I was Wednesday. The phone rang. 3304. I picked it. 3304 Burma Villas. Then it was my father himself who was calling. He said, "Put the phone down and go into the room." I said, "I was wondering which room," but his voice was very steady. He said, "Put the phone down." Okay, so I put the phone down. Then he came back home, and I got to understand this story when I got to university. That day, throughout, I didn't understand it, and you can't ask. So he came and his phone kept ringing. He turned on the television around 5 o'clock, GBC. So GBC would have been showing Children's Own. Sorry, those of you who are not my age, you understand it. But the late Tina Moses, fantastic woman. She had a program called Children's Own. So that's how we watch Children's Own, and after that you are getting ready to go to bed if it's school time. I think this was vacation time. So at vacation you can stay up a little bit. So when the TV came on, it was not Tina Moses who was doing Children's Own. They were playing patriotic songs. And in those days, when they play patriotic songs, it's like today, City FM or Joy FM will play the breaking news jingle. That's how it was. So GBC kept on, oh man, it was going on like that. And my father seemed to be waiting for something, So his phone kept ringing and ringing. So in the end, he picked the phone from where the phone was and brought it near the sofa. He put it in the sofa. It's a landline. He put it in the sofa and he sat there because every 2 minutes the phone was ringing. And whenever he picked the phone, the questions he was asked, what weapons did they use? But who was in charge? I remember that. And I don't hear the other person. Then he would say, Semni. Then he put the phone. So he was not his normal jovial self. So Da, 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 da. Then they started playing the national anthem, and then he asked me to shut up. So the TV was there, I was there. And then JJ appeared on the TV. And those days, we know him, JJ, his overall, he appeared in the TV in his overall thing like that. And then he began to speak. And usually when JJ spoke, he spoke with a lot of confidence and a lot of drive. That's how we know JJ's broadcast. And I'll get they are looking for a video of JJ speaking. It's not the same, but it's an example. They'll show it to you, and I'll refer to it. So when JJ spoke, that's JJ speaking. So this is how he spoke. This is not the same video of that day, but this is what I saw. The thing I'm describing to you, it looked exactly like this. So they play the national anthem, and then JJ shows up like this. And you can see that in the video you're watching, he's speaking very fast and he's speaking quite confidently. He's wearing his, what he's wearing is called the Capt SD. It's a military terminology. It's called the Capt SD. And in the Champon days, it was very common. And then later on, JJ's era, they wore more berets. But this is the Capt SD. Yeah, there he goes. He's sipping something. He's sipping something over there. He's wearing a Capt SD in an Air Force overall. So that's how JJ appeared. So JJ appears on the TV like this. So that day, after the national anthem played, JJ appeared on the program, on the TV like that, speaking. But that day's JJ's disposition was somewhat different from the way he spoke to us on a daily basis. His disposition was somewhat different. He was calm, he was sober, and he was saying something like, the bodies of the people were found in Bondase. And Bondase is a word that I had heard, because when they are going to, soldiers call something going to bush. That means they are going on military exercises. And in those days, of the early days of the revolution, there were quite a few military exercises, usually led by General Nod-Kwenu. And so when they are going and they are packing, I remember the word Bondase. I didn't know that it was a town. I didn't know what it was. But I heard Rawlings say Bondase. And for the period that Rawlings was talking, my father's phone didn't ring. So it looks like everyone was quiet and watching. And he said they picked up in Bondase, and their bodies have been found. And I remember what he said, that this had been perpetrated by enemies of the revolution. And my father repeated that, enemies of the revolution. So I remember clearly that he said this has been perpetrated by enemies of the revolution. Now, what had happened that day? What had happened was that in the midst of the coup d'etat and the curfew and all the chaos and suspension of human rights and all that, judges were in their homes, high court judges were in their homes, and somebody shows up in the home. Up to today, we don't know who it is. Today, we'll see what we can do to get you an idea of perhaps who it was. But up to today, we really don't know who it is. And that's really one of the negative points of the Fourth Republic, that the Fourth Republic has not been able to unravel the architects of the events of 30th June 1982. That's a shame. I'll read the Bar President's speech today and you see what he said. It's a shame that the whole Fourth Republic has not been able to unravel that situation. J. Kufuor tried with Truth and Reconciliation. We couldn't nail it down. You remember the what you've been watching on social media, Dabuga versus Rian Hosaivis exchanges. Capt Tsikata was there. Rawlings was asked to come with some tapes and all that. It didn't end in the way that we expect, to be able to identify which people had committed this heinous crime. And this is the biggest crime committed in the history of our country. 3 high court judges. So the judges were in their homes. Then somebody comes and says, tells him that, oh, my lord, come and have a look at something outside. Somebody wants to see you. And in those days, people were not suspicious. So his lordship gets out of his home. You know where they live, in the ridge area, long staircase. So staircase outside. So he descends the staircase. And then they grab him and put him in a military vehicle. They drive off. So the judges were picked from their home like that. Some of them were not even completely dressed because they were sitting in their home watching television at 7 o'clock. And they say, oh, my lord, please come. They pick you and they put you in the car. And the car goes to another home. And they go to they do the same thing. And so, your lordship, good evening. Somebody is looking for you. He comes, then they grab him and put him in the car. So when the man was sitting at the hall alone and his family were in the bedroom and elsewhere, they thought he was, so they'll come and see that, oh, daddy's not there. Where is he? Where is daddy? Where is daddy? Where is daddy? Where is the houseboy? Says, oh, some people came and picked him in a car. He sat in some car and he left. What time? Which car? No mobile phone. You can't call daddy. He's gone. But it was kind of normal because maybe he's going to see a friend around the area or something like that. Okay, so on that night, they picked up 3 High Court judges, and then the reason why the story should have made sense very easily was that it looked like the 4th person who was added was originally not intended by the plotters to be added, but somebody decided to add him because he was not a judge. His name is Major Accra, and well, Birmingham people knew who Major Accra was. Major Accra had been one of the favorites of the Champon regime. He had been sent to Gihok as managing director of Gihok. In those days, the soldiers were managing everything in the Champon era. Major Accra had gone to Gihok as managing director, and then he had had some issues there with the staff, and he had gone to Gihok as personnel manager, actually, HR manager, actually. And so he had dealt with personnel. Then they picked up Major Accra as well, and then they drove them to a military base called Bondase and set fire on them. Took them out of the vehicles, put them under a tree, and set fire on them. That's what happened. That's the meaning of Martyrs' Day. And this happened because Ghana was not a constitutional democracy. Now, who were these judges? I don't want to mention their names, but we know Kwabena Japon's father, Judge Japan, Cecilia Krantin Ado, and it's okay. All right. These judges were found during the investigation that they had been treating the cases of people whose property had been seized by the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council that had been led by Flight Lieutenant Rawlings in 1979. So the JJ coup of 1979, the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council coup of 3 months, occasioned some property seizures of some people. We know that businesses were collapsed by the Rawlings administration. We've said that all over again. We've said that all the time. Okay. Now, when the Constitution was restored in 1979, September, when Dr. Liman became president, these persons hired lawyers and put out a writ at the High Court demanding their property that had been seized and urging upon the court that they had done nothing wrong and that they had made their money legitimately. So these 3 judges were said to be those judges who had mostly returned properties to persons whose property had been seized by the AFRC. It looked obvious then that the main architects of the AFRC, being Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, Capt Tsikata, and others, who had now returned to power under the PNDC, had an axe to grind with these judges who had made their decisions to seize property look illegal. That was the connecting dots. That the AFRC people were angry with these 3 judges because they had returned property to people whose property they had seized and had pronounced their actions as illegal. They had taken another illegal action to overthrow the government that they had themselves had restored. They were back in power and they were looking for these judges. It was very unfortunate when these things were coming around. So I'll cut a long story short. That's why when we say we need a constitutional democracy, and some people think that it is some joke, and then they can just come and then go and do a coup. We should do a coup because Akufo-Addo has appointed 120 ministers, so we should go and do a coup because the price of plantain is expensive and the price of this expensive, that's expensive, is true. So we should do a coup. Because government is spending money on cathedral, so we should do a coup so that they become famous. That's all that's all what's about. They are bored. They are not able to grind anything to make them famous naturally. They want to take advantage of people's discomfort. We have seen them in this country and seen them. And that's why today, after so many lessons learned, and by the grace of God, they are receiving the pushback that no Ghanaian is going to follow you on this, your nonsense. No, we have had enough of that. So that's what happened at the time. Now, at that period, the PNDC, which was the ruling government, had a certain membership. I'm going to go to touch screen now to run you through the members of the PNDC at the time. Of course, it was chaired by Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, chairman. It included Brigadier General Nunoo-Mensah. Keep Brigadier Nunoo-Mensah in your mind. I'll come back and say something about him relating to this matter. Keep Brigadier Nunoo-Mensah in your mind. Brigadier Joseph Nunoo-Mensah. It also included Capt Tsikata, who was in charge of national security at the time. Okay, and that's why he was interviewed by both the Special Investigations Board of Justice Azuk Krab that conducted the investigations and decided that somebody should be killed for the murder of the judges. Kojo Tsikata was fundamental in that one. He later on complained that he had been targeted by Yidana, the police chief and co, over the matter. I'll show you a bit of that video if I have it. I put it in the Kojo Tsikata tributes where he was complaining to the Reconciliation Committee, but that he, Kojo Tsikata, the head of national security during this, when this event occurred, had actually been targeted by the IGP Yidana and being wrongly accused of complicity in the murder of the 3 High Court judges. That's a very interesting scenario, isn't it? But Kojo Tsikata was in charge of the national security. And this is Joachim Amatekwe, who was eventually killed. Now, this is the Daily Graphic caption of the Monday, August 22, 1983, when Amatekwe was killed. And it's entitled Amatekwe's Last Words. And this is what I was saying. You'll find it out in the video. We'll show you that in Kojo Yanke's book, he talks about the strange recording that Flight Lieutenant Rawlings had to follow Amatekwe to the shooting range and record from him. And Amatekwe said that Captain Tsikata was not part of the conspiracy to murder the judges. Completely strange. Completely and absolutely strange. And particularly curious too, isn't it? That the president, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, ran to the shooting range where Amatekwe, who was a member of the PNDC and who had been convicted for the murder of the 3 High Court judges. So there's no question that Amatekwe was involved in it. Amatekwe is certainly involved in it. All the investigations pointed to that. That's why he was killed. But the question that Ghanaians continue to ask, was it Amatekwe working alone? Did he work alone to abduct 3 judges from their various homes and include Major Accra? In the case of Major Accra in particular, it was directly pointed to Amatekwe because it was said that whilst as a human resource manager at GIHOC, Major Accra had put Amatekwe on disciplinary measures because he was indisciplined. And the Major Accra had tried to discipline him at GIHOC. I think he had been suspended and he had lost his job. So he was angry. And when the revolution came, he joined. That's the danger of these revolutions. That's the danger of these coups. People just join because they have personal axe to grind. And that was Amatekwe. He joined the coup and became a high-profile member of the government. He was a member of the executive, like today's ministerial list. He was a member of the executive of the PNDC, Joachim Amatekwe. And then the SIB came in and Amatekwe was executed. But the question Ghanaians continue to ask, that was Amatekwe working under instructions or was he working alone? So Joachim Amatekwe, then JJ, then makes the suspicion worse by attending to the shooting range and taping out Amatekwe in the tape where Amatekwe says that Kojo Tsikata was not part of the conspiracy. So that's what the graphic is reporting. Amatekwe's last words. This is what the graphic is reporting. Okay, let's move on. This is Sergeant Aloga Akatapori, who was also a member of the PNDC at the time this murder thing occurred. Later on, out of this conversation about who killed the judges, who did what and what, Aloga Akatapori became a renegade of the government. He ran away because his life was in danger, because a lot of them were concerned. I'll get to that story a bit soon. Let's look at the rest. Okay, this is Chris Bukari Atim. Chris Atim, he had a trio of very solid intellectuals who were back in the PNDC. Himself, Chris Atim, Zarayebo, and another guy called Yen Yen. I don't know them. I just read about them, so don't worry about that. I read it thoroughly. Chris Atim, Zarayebo, and Yen Yen formed a certain kind of trio that was advising the PNDC. On the outside of the trio, you can include Akoto Ampao and Dr. Yao Graham. They were also there as well. But this is Chris Atim, who was a member of the PNDC, representing the workers' union, something like that. Okay. And then there's Joseph Ejebwedi. In Burma camp, we used to be very afraid of him. W01 Ejebwedi is very scary. It's a guy you need to be afraid of. We don't have his actual photograph here. This is not him. But Ejebwedi was a very active soldier, who was a very active soldier in the revolution, who was an anti-democracy kind of person. And Ejebwedi was a member of the PNDC. And then here is Reverend Dr. Vincent Kwabena Damwa. Now, Kwabena Damwa was originally a Catholic priest. He left the Catholic Church and formed some Africana mission, something he called Africana mission. It's something like Africans worshiping God by themselves, something like that. That was the church that he had, Africana mission, Reverend Damwa. So his instead of saying Hallelujah, Amen, in Africana mission they say Amira, Ame. That's how they used to say it. And they had big. How did I get to know? Because they were on television. The state broadcaster, the only TV station, gave them a lot of time. And so people learned about Reverend. Later he called himself Reverend Osofo Komfo Damwa. He said he was an Osofo and was also a fetish priest. He was a member of the PNDC. And the only lady, Mrs. Anna was also a member of the PNDC. Eboteria was also a member of the PNDC. So these were the members of the PNDC. Now, after this dastardly event of the murder of the 3 High Court judges, Akatapori left the PNDC. He became a renegade. It was suspected against him that he wanted to overthrow Jerry's government, of which he was a member. So he had to run away. The story about how Akatapori left the country, I now know it, but it's not for today. I'll tell you. Because somebody had told me. The one who participated in getting Akatapori out of Ghana has told me how it happened. I'll tell you another day. But Akatapori left. And then also Chris Atim left. And they all became renegades and dissidents of the PNDC based on this. And the one who left but didn't run away is the eternal Brigadier Joseph Nunoo-Mensah. Brigadier Nunoo-Mensah had been CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, and upon the murder of the judges, he was angry and he resigned. Brigadier Nunoo-Mensah told me the story himself, and he's told it to other media houses. And he still lives in the same place that he was living in 1982. So he pointed to me where Justice Philip Archer lived. Philip Archer later became Chief Justice. He lived in the neighborhood. So he said on the morning of the event, the next day, the 1st July, was getting ready to go to work when he saw Philip Archer conducting a walk. And Philip Archer said, "General, have you heard what has happened?" He said, "What has happened?" He said, "You haven't heard?" He said, "No." He said, 3 of our judges have been abducted. At that time, that's what the story, abducted. We didn't know whether they had been killed, where they were. Nobody knew. 3 had been abducted. And General said, "What?" They said, "Yes, 3 judges have been abducted." So he hurried up and went to Gonda Barracks. I didn't finish the story of the abduction. So they abducted them. They tried to burn them. But heavy rains of that night, by the grace of God, heavy rains came down. I think they set them ablaze and left. So after they left, the rains came down, so they didn't completely burn. So the next day, ordinary Ghanaians walking in Bondasi saw it and reported to the police that we have seen 3 bodies, 4 bodies burnt, and one of the woman in there was pregnant. And we've seen the thing burnt and they are there. The police came and looked at it, quickly called headquarters, and that's where Yidana was IGP. That's where Yidana got very angry, and that's why his fight with Capt Tsikata started. Because he was IGP, Capt Tsikata was National Security, and Yidana continuously pounded Mr. Tsikata that you were responsible for the judge's murder. And Tsikata told the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we have the video, that it was Yidana who was creating that suspicion. Yidana was the IGP, and when his boys reported, he went to the ground. He said, "This one there is Capt Tsikata." I don't know whether Yidana is right or wrong. I don't know whether Capt Tsikata is right in defending himself or wrong, but this is the narrative. Tsikata himself said Yidana was pointing fingers at him. So they reported and they went to see the bodies, and then they brought the body and said, "These are the judges." And that's how we found out. Otherwise, it would have been bent and the story would have remained abduction forever. That's what happens when you want a coup d'etat motivated by reckless people. That's what happened, and we should, as a society, put them at the back. If Akufo-Addo is doing something that is wrong, there are opportunities and ways in which to deal with it. Ultimately, there will be an election. But if we say that we want a coup d'etat, this is the kind of Ghana that we'll be returning to, and the young people cannot handle it. We couldn't handle it. No human being can handle it. So Nunoo-Mensah said he ran to the head office, their office, Gonda Barracks. He said he went in, and everybody was quiet. So he suspected that people had heard the information. But JJ was in the office. So he opened the door and went and asked JJ that, "Have you heard what has happened?" And JJ seemed to know what has happened. I think at that time he was preparing his speech for GBC, the one I talked about. JJ seemed to know what had happened. And Tsikata was there as well. The rest of the details, Nunoo-Mensah will tell us when he's ready. But after that, he resigned from government. So Nunoo-Mensah resigned and remained in the country. And that's how he began to form his MPP sentiment. And later on, when the MPP was formed, Nunoo-Mensah joined the MPP against Rawlings. And then he ran for parliamentary candidate for the New Patriotic Party for the Winnipeg constituency in 1996. Alexander Afenyo-Markin, Nunoo-Mensah is your senior because he ran on that ticket many years before you did. Nunoo-Mensah, however, found his way back to NDC with Professor Mills. And today he stands as a statesman whom we all truly respect. General Nunoo-Mensah, he left the military. JJ didn't live. Later on, Captain Tsikata also left. So the body of the judges was found, and a very emotional funeral was conducted at the prisons of the Supreme Court. Have a look.